If everyone could start finding seats during this music video, it'd be great. If everybody could start finding their seats during the music video, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Robin, he had this saying, usually at the end of, and chances are if you're in this room, you were either at a team dinner or a breakfast or a lunch at some point in your life, right, with Robin. But inevitably after each one of these meals, you walk out to the car and he would at some point, just kind of encapsulate what happened, think about the meal and the conversations, and he would just stop and say, man, we know some strange people. And looking over this wonderful crowd, damn, you showed up today. How about that, huh? All of you, you're strange. It's okay, though. Look around. It's wonderful, and Robin would have it no other way. My name is Dave First. Welcome to the aptly named Robin Miller. It's a celebration of life, and we are going to do just that. We're going to celebrate today because, Robin, he wouldn't want a pity party. It's not going to be a funeral, which I know you saw on the invitations. So we have some ground rules today, okay? Here we go. It's okay to clap, which you've already done a little bit of. It's okay to cuss, right? It's okay to bitch. It's okay to hate, right? What did Robin say? Hate is good. And it's okay to have fun today, all right? So it's going to be a lot of... here's the thing. If you're easily offended, this is probably not the room for you. Then again, if you were a friend of Robin, chances are you weren't easily offended, so which is all good. But at the end, if this seems more like a roast than a toast, just kind of roll with it. We're going to enjoy this moment. I will say this, though. It's appropriate that we're doing this here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Before this year's NTT IndyCar Series race during Brickyard Weekend, I got a call from Jay Fry, who's here today, and he's like, hey, how can we get Robin up to the front of the grid before the race starts so he can be up there for the flyover, the national anthem. He can see Sarah Fisher, the pace car. I'm like, this is a great idea. So Robin shows up literally about 15 minutes before the engines are going to fire. I grab the keys to the golf cart, and I put him in the passenger seat. Steve Shunk's in the seat behind us. His sister Diane's behind us. And we're making a beeline to the front of the grid. We're like zigzagging, right, through the entire grid. Drivers are already getting in the cars, and which was cool because Robin's seeing all these guys again. We're passing Graham Rahal, and he leans over and says, God, I wish Graham would win another race. And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you on that. And we'd pass Colton Herta. God, that kid is good. And you can just hear his voice, right? God, that kid is good. And then we passed Tony Kanaan, and how old do you think TK really is? And I said, I don't know. That's the great mystery of racing. We really don't know how. We got to do some carbon dating at some point, but other than that, we're not quite sure. But anyway, we're weaving through fans, crew guys, officials, drivers, and they're all doing the same thing. They're high-fiving him. They're coming up for hugs. Hey, Robin, we miss you. Good luck. Miller strong. It was one thing after another, and it was awesome. Mario was there for a big hug, and I know that meant a lot to the family and us as well. So it's just amazing. And he turned to me at one point during all this. Again, we're weaving. It's like 15 minutes. The clock's on. We got to get up there. And he goes, this is the greatest day of my life. And I'm thinking about this, and I guess so. Here's a guy that has done and seen everything in racing. He is literally the Indianapolis sports version of the movie Almost Famous. And if you don't know the movie, you've got homework this weekend. Go home and watch Almost Famous and picture the young kid as Robin Miller. And that's exactly who this is. So it was just perfect in the end that the sport that he loved so much and poured so much energy and passion into was giving it back to him at that very moment when perhaps he needed to hear it the most. And at the end of the day, we should all be that lucky. We're going to start today on behalf of Diane and the family. We want to start by thanking Robin's doctors and nurses that are all in attendance here today. Please stand and be recognized. Thank you so much. There we are back here. Needless to say, a big thank you to the staff and management of Indianapolis Motor Speedway for opening your rather wet doors to us today. By the way, the rain, no question, this is Miller, right? And to that end, we have some very special guests with us today. Super Tex, AJ Foyt's in the house. And I tell you, Mario Andretti is here. Mario, great to see you, my friend. Thank you. Roger Penske, thank you very much for being here today. Mark Miles, Jay Fry, Doug Bowles, thank you all. It's a tremendous honor that you are sharing your Saturday with us. Some former champions are here. Tony Kanaan is here in the front row. I saw Takuma Sato, two-time Indy 500 champion. He's here. The aforementioned Graham Rahal is right over here as well. Graham, thanks, buddy. Members of the Pacers organization, members of the Colts organization, former Indiana Mr. Basketball, Billy Shepard, ABA's own, is here somewhere. Thank you, Billy. Let's begin, though, today with baby Kathy Riggs, Robin's cousin, who will lead us in a prayer. Thank you.
Don't ask, but I'm very honored to be here today. I was very touched that, and I feel special that Diane and Dan, I think Robin would want me here too. I'm going to be kind of the serious part, if there's a little bit of serious in today, but I feel so special to be here. And each one of you should feel very, very special to be here because you were invited. And Robin loved you like he loved me, and we were his inner circle. And I just want you to reflect just a few minutes on what Robin meant to you. I'm going to have a couple of minutes of silence, and I just want you to close your eyes and just think about something that made Robin endearing to you and why you loved Robin and he loved you. So after a couple of minutes of silence, I'm just going to ask for thanks for Robin's life and what he meant to us. So let's have a couple of minutes of silence, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this opportunity to celebrate Robin. We loved Robin and what he meant to each one of us. And Robin was very special. He was very unique and he was a character. But we loved him and he loved us. And Father, we just thank you for the lessons that Robin taught us through gifts that you have gave him. He always had the gift of time. He always had time for us. It didn't matter if it was a hello or how you doing, but he had time for us. And we need to take a lesson from that, Father. And we thank you for his generosity. All of us were privileged to be a part of his generosity, whether it was through a meal or a snack or whatever it was, Father. Robin taught us how to be so, so generous, and we're thankful for that. And Father, we're thankful that the way he loved so fiercely the people that he cared about, and we wish we could take a lesson from Robin and be like Robin. Father, we thank you that you have promised us a life that goes on forever. You have given us the gift of eternal life. And you have said in your word, let not your hearts be troubled, but trust in God and trust also in me. For in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come and receive you to myself, that where I am, you may be also. Father, we thank you that we have that gift of eternal life through your Son, Jesus. And Father, as we close this part, we just ask that you would especially be with Diane and Ashley and Emily as they have days coming when they're going to miss Robin. We're all going to miss Robin. And all those first, wow, I wish Robin was here. But comfort us as we take an example from Robin's life. And Father, we'll give you all the praise and glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
As you might imagine, there's a lot to get to here this afternoon, and we wanted to begin with a way that really best encapsulates a tremendous life and career. Here's NBC's Lee Diffie.
A true friend always tells you the truth, even when it's hard to hear. And Robin Miller was that friend to open-wheel racing. Born in Indianapolis, a native Hoosier, Robin could not wait to be part of the action at a young age. He stooged for Jim Hurtubise at the Indy 500, drove USAC midgets in the 70s and 80s, all while covering the racing scene as a newspaper reporter for the Indianapolis Star. Robin's style was very matter-of-fact, calling out owners and drivers alike.
As long as they keep treating this like a Monopoly game, nobody's going to respect him.
But he was always quick to sing the praises of those same people when they earned it.
What a future this kid's got. Pretty good way to start his Indianapolis Motor Speedway career.
After making his mark as a writer, Robin brought his distinctive storytelling style to broadcasting, flourishing at ESPN, Speed Channel, and who could forget those grid runs with NBC Sports.
How is it this guy has a job and I don't?
Because you took the buyout and I got a lot of debt.
Race fans always look forward to whatever Robin would say next, whether it be on air or in his mailbag for Racer magazine, even if they only wanted to passionately disagree. Even if you didn't love Robin, you respected him for speaking the truth. He was the one who pushed us all to make the sport he loved so much better. There's no disputing, he did just that, as only Robin Miller could.
Robin Miller, I saw him this morning. This one's for you, baby. We love you, Robin, everything that you do.
The Motorsport Hall of Fame inductee fought cancer and leukemia for a lengthy time. He's survived by his sister Diane, her family, and the entire motorsport community. Godspeed, Robin.
Thank you, Lee. No one knows a good storyteller quite like another really good storyteller. He also happens to be a world champion and one of the most gifted drivers to ever compete. Please welcome the 1969 winner of the Indianapolis 500, Mr. Mario Andretti.
Hi, everyone. What a testimony for Robin, you know, to see so many. He's actually embarrassed, quite honestly. And if you know him, you know that he is. But, you know, all of us have, I'm sure, many stories to tell about him. I'm going to start from the beginning. I'm one of the few, maybe, few that remembers when he had a legitimate job as a newspaper man right at the beginning with the Star. And what I remember clearly is how annoying it was. Why? Because he really wanted to dig into everything. And, you know, we always, when we're doing our job, everyone is just focused and you don't want to be bothered. But, and then you sit back and reflect on it and say, you know what? This kid is really trying to do his job. And that's really what it was. And he was on a rev limiter from the beginning, always, always. And from that standpoint, you have to appreciate someone. You know, one of my quotes about qualifying is, if everything seems under control, you're just not going fast enough. Well, that applied to him, quite honestly, and his job. And I mean, this was his life, just like the sport is to all of us. Us as drivers, you know, you devote everything, every inch of your energy to it. And he did the same thing. He did the same thing with his job. He obviously, now and then, you know, just kind of bruised a few ribs and few nerves along the way, you know, but it's only because he was so brutally honest that he just believed in what he really was saying, and that is in the best interest of the sport. I mean, we, as you know, all of you know, I'm sure in this room, there were a period of time where, you know, things were very, very confusing and upside down back in in the early 90s or late 90s. And again, he chose to take sides because he knew what was right. And even that it cost him his job, basically. But he was a survivor because he knew there was a place for him, no question, in the sport. And he knew how much we appreciated him because, again, from a career standpoint, he knew it all. He just saw it even. He had an appreciation for what the drivers are all about, in a sense, because he tried to kill himself driving a midget anyway for a few years. So he knew all of that. And so he was so much one of us. And his entire career, his entire life was totally dedicated to the sport, to all of us, to what we loved. And again, I don't know much more can be said about that because, and again, I can see, from all of you, this audience that took time to be here and celebrate his life. As we said, he meant so much, and he will always be with us. And he'll be an example, quite honestly, for so many to follow. So here again, I could probably go on and on. Maybe I should have made some notes, so I'm rambling on. But nevertheless, he's up there just smiling, and because he knows that he has so many friends, and certainly we are. We loved him. Even AJ loved him. That's what I thought. So that's saying something, quite honestly. So again, Robin, Godspeed, and we'll see each other sooner than you might think.
From one racer to another. Thank you, Mario. Oh, yes? It's all good. No. We appreciate you coming. He has a wedding to go to. The busiest man in motorsports. Thank you, Mario. Please welcome a friend of the family, John Herrick. John?
So I've been a friend of the Miller-Zachary clan for my whole life, and met Robin when I was like 8, and I had a big passion for sports. And when I was about 16, I told Robin Miller, I said, Robin, I think I'm going to get into broadcasting. And he goes, why? Why are you doing that? I said, I just love it, I think it'd be a great thing for me. So I graduate from high school. I said, Robin, can I put you down as a reference for me? He said, well, I'd have been mad if you didn't, Johnny. You better do that. So I put him down as a reference. And I was working at a radio job in Oklahoma for about 6 years. And it was a good job. It was going great, but I just kind of felt like I'd outgrown it. And so I found out that there was a news anchor position open at WIBC. And I applied for it, and I eventually got it. About 2 months into the job, I asked my boss, I said, did you call any of my references at all? And he goes, oh yeah, I called all of them. But the first one was the one that stuck out to me the most. I said, what's that? He goes, Robin Miller. If you have Robin Miller on your resume as a reference, that means something. So Robin vouched for me and said if I was starting any radio station at all, building it from scratch, I would hire John Herrick. So that probably shows Robin's questionable judgment at some times, but I appreciate the support that he gave me, because I probably wouldn't have gotten hired if it wasn't for Robin standing up for me there. And then 2018 was my first Indy 500 race that I covered, being back at the track, and I saw Robin in the media center, and I said, Robin, this is probably my first time being back at the Speedway in person in like 8 years. He's like, well, it's good to have you home. And I said, well, I don't think I would have been home here at all if it wasn't for you. So I think the biggest thing with Robin that I will always cherish is his loyalty. And I've talked to several friends over the last couple months about it's going to be weird not seeing Robin there, and it's going to feel like a void is left. In the physical sense, I would say yes, that's true. It will be hard to not see him, 6 chairs down from me in the IMS Media Center. But his essence, his spirit, and everything that he meant to me and to all of you in here and to everyone in that media center, that's not going anywhere. So thanks for always being with us, R. We love you.
When I remember the old days of the Indianapolis Star, I think of the great sports writers. It was a different era, right? People would not really know much about what was happening in the world until you opened up the Star on a Monday morning or Tuesday morning, and you go through it over your cup of coffee or whatever. With all due respect to my TV friends, the Star was the thing to open up in Central Indiana and Indianapolis. And when it came to columnists, not only did Robin certainly rank at the top of that must-read, but so did our next speaker. Please welcome not only a former colleague of Robin's, but a dear, dear friend as well. Please welcome Mr. Bill Benner.
Hi, Diane. Diane called me Wild Man. That was the nickname that Robin gave to me. And I wore it proudly on our softball T-shirts that we had. Okay, I will not tell you the story about how Robin stole my girlfriend while I was away at basic training in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Because it actually turned out to be a blessing, because I moved from that girl to meeting my wife 49 years ago yesterday, as a matter of fact, Sherry, so yeah. And Robin was the best man in our wedding. He arrived outside the church in LaPorte, Indiana, towing his midget race car, and he left shortly thereafter off to another race because Robin was always looking for the next fast lane. What I will tell you is that what Robin and I had in common. We were both from the South Side. Robin from Southport, they had the fancy uniforms, and I was from Center Grove, we were the farm boys. We both broke in as score boys at the Indianapolis Star, and that was a number you called 633-1200 to get scores on games, settle gambling bets, but among our duties were doing booze runs for the sports editor. We both got our first big break in sports writing by the grace of the late, great Cy McBride, and I know Cy and Robin are together because Cy set up lives for both of us, and we wouldn't be here and wouldn't have accomplished what we accomplished without Cy. We both got our first bylines in the Star when we were 19 years old. We both lavishly and stupidly spent our first paychecks on sports cars. Mine was a Triumph Spitfire, 4-cylinder piece of crap. And Robin, of course, got a Lotus Europa. We both covered the Indiana Pacers in the American Basketball Association and drank beer with the great Bobby Slick Leonard. Well, I drank beer with Slick. Robin didn't drink. We both loved the adrenaline rush of daily print journalism, of beating a tight deadline with a well-crafted game story, or laying out the sports section and thriving in the crush of those 5-edition fire alarms on Friday and Saturday nights. And nobody except for all of his colleagues from the Indy Star, if you ever experienced Robin in what we called the slot on a Saturday night, laying out the newspaper, well, you've never heard more imaginative uses of the F-bomb ever, ever, ever. We both rose to the ranks of columnists, developing love-hate relationships with our readers along the way. We both pissed off a basketball coach in Bloomington and his legion of followers. In addition to newspapering, we branched into radio and television gigs, and Robin was the local pioneer of that. We both earned Riding Hall of Fame status. In Robin's case, it was well earned, and in my case, I guess they ran out of more worthy nominees. And we both left the Indianapolis Star within a month of one another. For various reasons, it was in time to go. But for all we shared, especially love and friendship, and John, you mentioned it, loyalty. God, was he the most loyal guy you ever knew. There was something Robin had that I didn't. That skinny SOB had balls. He had large, large balls. He was afraid of nothing or no one. And in the end, that included dying. But there was one more thing, that important thing that Robin and I shared, and that was a love of the city and the state and its institutions, and especially in Robin's case, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where we are gathered here today to celebrate the one and only R. So Diane, if you could come up for just a moment. And while Diane comes up, I do want to emphasize that I'm speaking for all my Indianapolis Star colleagues. We had an all-star team during the golden age of sports journalism. So I am so proud to be here today to say that I now share even one more thing with Robin. On behalf of Governor Herrick Holcomb, and with the help of his staff, including my wonderful sister-in-law, Jane Jankowski, and my great brother, David, I am deeply honored to present the state's highest individual distinction and honor, the Sagamore of the Wabash, to my pal, the one and only Robin Lee Miller. He will always and forever be a Hoosier's Hoosier. Diane, here you go. Thank you. God bless.
Arguably, what Robin was to writing about motorsports, our next guest is to competing in it. As a team owner, he's an 18-time winner of the Indianapolis 500, and now, of course, takes great pride as a steward of that great race and certainly this world-class facility. Please welcome the chair of Penske Corp, Mr. Roger Penske.
Well, for Robin, I wore my black pants today, and I didn't wear a T-shirt, just so I wanted to be sure that I was in line with everyone. As you can see, I brought some notes. I'm not quite as good as Andretti at just standing up, but as we said many times today, this is a celebration of Robin's life. And I want to thank everybody from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, IndyCar Series, and IMSP for coming here and letting us, Diane and the family, share this special moment with all of us. He was clearly one of a kind and one of the most colorful and engaging personality that our sport has ever seen. I know we're all going to miss Robin's passion, his humor, his insight, and his knowledge and support of IndyCar racing. I knew Robin for over 50 years. It's hard to believe that he and I started together here in 1969. We got to know each other pretty well. I went in one direction, obviously, and he went in another. But I think the first thing that he wanted to do was be behind the wheel. But as I said earlier today, that really wasn't his calling. And because of that, he took his skills in another direction. And they certainly would shine. And I think of all the times that I sat face to face with Robin, or he had a story I just wish he wouldn't talk about, but that didn't make any difference, I can tell you, with him. Robin found a true calling, I think, as a reporter for more than 5 decades. And I think he was one of the best in the business. And Bill, you know, to think about you and reading your columns and the comments today, right on. I mean, I think that just terrific. And the wonderful award from the governor, it couldn't be better. But he worked for the Star for 33 years. And then think about Auto Week and Racer, Speed Channel, ESPN, and of course, the last decade at NBC. I think he kept in shape by running up and down the pit lane, didn't he? Chasing AJ or someone for a story. Welcome, AJ. But no one really covered the sport any better than he did. He loved it. He loved the people, the drivers, the fans. There's no question he made a big difference. And the fans, I would say, was probably one of the things that made a big difference. And they wanted to hear his stories. And I think his direct style wasn't always popular with a paddock, but that's what he wanted. He wanted to be different. Many times I found myself on opposite sides with Robin, but you know, at the end of the day, he was a true guy. He cared a lot about racing. We talked about the people. We talked about the people within the sport. But I got to know another side of Robin Miller January 6th, 2020. And that was the acquisition date of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And it was the one scoop that he didn't have, that we were going to buy the track. And even I remember coming in that day to meet with Mark Miles, and Doug Bowles ran into me at 7 o'clock in the morning and said, "What are you doing here?" Well, of course, Robin didn't have that story, but obviously, following that, he became a real anchor for me and for the Speedway. He was my connection and our connection to the fans. And it was every single week he would send me a note. I got this from a fan, or I got that from a fan. What do you think? And I remember getting in a golf cart and going around the track with him, showing him some of the things that we were doing and wanted to do. But he was that connection. And I think that he became a real key element of this track and will be forever. And for me, I can only thank him for the fun, the friendships. When I see these great slides here today, there's so many things that we can all remember. The guy with the long hair. God, we don't have long hair today, do we? But he was something special. So all I want to say to all of you is we lost a great friend. And I think today, this is going to be the last lap for Robin Miller at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And Diane, to you and your family, thank you for giving us this opportunity today. And we love him. We're going to see him, all of us, sometime, and he'll be there writing the story and have the scoop. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Roger. You're absolutely right, too. At the end of a race weekend, I feel confident Roger joined a lot of us and made a point to tune into a show on something that was called Speed, a network. It was completely dedicated to racing. Younger folks may not know that existed at one point. And there was a show on Sunday nights called Wind Tunnel. I mean, why read, with all due respect, Bill, why read something in the paper the next day that you could see that night on Wind Tunnel? And, you know, if we were all lucky, maybe, just maybe, Robin would drop an F-bomb on live television. Here's a look back, including the final episode that ever aired.
It's a Robin Miller night. It's a Robin Miller night.
You see, fellas? I knew they'd get Robin Miller.
I'm not sure who that is.
That's the guy who hates everything.
That guy? Oh, him. I love him.
Oh, I just love balding middle-aged men. Oh, is he wearing that loud sweatshirt?
Hey, isn't this the paper that fired Robin Miller?
Loser.
Yay, Robin Miller, Robin Miller!
Guess what?
Don't start.
Let me tell you something. I may hit you in the nuts. Did you hit your head when you were bull riding? Yeehaw! How in the hell do you practice a monster truck? Would you fly with Jack Roush? I learned from the best how to be grumpy. Milk a who? I'm going Sizzler. What do I got to do? It's a Sunday night. It's a wind tunnel. After I get fired here, I'll need a job. What's wrong with me?
Miller, that's a great question. What is wrong with you?
Been hanging around racetracks all my life. No excuse.
Elaborate on that. We're in a reflective mood tonight. Tell us about the path that led you to this final episode of a canceled TV show.
Well, think about it. I've been watching racing for 50 years. I've been writing about it for 45. For the last 15, I've been on various television shows, even though I've got a face for radio. I got to drive midgets in USAC for 8 or 9 years. I got to be in Indy 500 pit crews. You don't have to tell me about how great my life has been. I understand when you can combine your job and your passion, it's very rare.
Hi, I'm Robin Miller's cousin, Kristin. And I think about staying up late to see Robin on the news when I was a little girl, being able to watch him and listen to him in Q95, and sometimes Mom would have to cover our ears on what we'd hear, or seeing him on Wind Tunnel. I've always been the biggest fan of my cousin. So I think when you think about a place like this, you think about all of the legends, all of the amazing characters, but to me it was always Robin that was the coolest. There was something so special about him going all in on life. He went for what he loved. His passion was racing. He loved racing. He loved racers. He loved the speedway. He loved his art. He wanted to be good at what he did. He cared about the quality of his work, but he also just was so passionate and fully dedicated. And it's been an inspiration for me. I love my work, and I think a lot of the courage to believe that big things are possible come from being able to observe my cousin, Robin Miller. When I think about us all pursuing our passions, I think we were all created for something special, and certainly Robin was special. But we know he was doing exactly what he loved every minute of every day. And I think about his nieces and the way that they dance and the way that they give everything they have to be their very best. I think about all of you and the way that you dedicate your life to this sport. But it was all about passion and all about love with Robin. And I take that lesson, and I'm gonna carry it every day to know that anything is possible. Even a guy from South Indianapolis, covering sports, fired, speaking his mind, nothing stopped him because it was inside his heart to chase his dreams. And so I so admire him for that. And I hope that someday we can all look back and think about the inspiration that Robin was in going after it. I also have a reading that I'd like to share from the family, from a cousin Diane. It's called True Greatness by C.E. Flynn. A man is as great as the dream he dreams, as great as the love he bears, as great as the value he redeems and the happiness he shares. A man is as great as the thoughts he thinks, as the worth he has attained, as the fountains of which his spirits drink, and the insight he has gained. A man is as great as the truth he speaks, as great as the help he gives, as great as the destiny he seeks, and as great as the life he lives. Robin Miller was a great man, and we're all better knowing him.
Thanks, Kristin. Ladies and gentlemen, now, the 1983 Indianapolis 500 champion, the gas man, Tom Sneva.
Our pal Robin. We all know the passion Robin had for racing. One of the things he would do that helped make him one of the best journalists that we've ever had in racing was the effort he put in to learn more about his subjects away from the racetrack. Yeah, he used to be the organizer of all the softball teams, basketball teams, golf outings, any kind of activity that would seem fun at the time. Now, sure, a lot of that was social, but after a while, I realized he was using all these things to learn more about the people he had to cover, whether it was drivers, owners, crew members, sponsors, or PR guys. I can still remember some of the fun we had with our softball team. We had that dynamic pitcher-catcher combo, the Bettenhausens, Gary and Merle. Between them, we might have had 2 good arms. Uniforms were usually T-shirts that Robin would hustle from one of his donut suppliers. Gary B. would wear the T over his racing uniform, so after the game, he was ready for the gentleman's club that just happened to be right next to the field where we always seemed to play our games. It wasn't about winning as much as it was about having fun. Well, I could go on and on about Robin's stories, but everybody has them. We're all going to miss Robin. They didn't just break the mold because there couldn't have been a mold for Robin. Thanks, Robin, for all the great times.
Tom Sneva. Well, as somewhat already been mentioned here, at one point or another, it seemed Robin wrote for just about everyone. I mean, his byline appeared more times than the name Foyt on an Indy 500 entry list, let's face it. So it was a few times, right? But one of the organizations who took advantage of Robin's abilities was a magazine called Racer. He loved writing for Racer. He loved the mailbag, and he loved doing videos for Racer as well. And what was always interesting after a race was like who would shoot the Robin Miller video after a win. Jim Roeder, who was here to help us out with all these videos today, he shot a lot. Steve Shunk would shoot some, and then a couple of years ago, I introduced him to the idea of like, well, you don't need these big $35,000 cameras. All you need is a cell phone to shoot videos. And he looked at me, I'm like, what? Yeah, right there in front of me. So we did that for a while. It was all good. But for more on Racer, please welcome the founder, president, and executive publisher, Mr. Paul Pfanner.
All right, let's begin by just pointing out that this is the largest gathering of Robin's favorite assholes in history. So, and I'm an asshole as well. So, but one of my last conversations with Robin was one about being honest and carrying it forward. He was worried there wouldn't be another one like him, and there won't be. But he told me to be honest, and I'll be honest, I really should have peed before I came up here, but it's probably oversharing. But, it's fantastic, by the way, to see AJ here because he won the first 5 races I ever saw. So it was all the more special that Robin's favorite ever sentence that he wrote about during the IRL era, which was all about opportunity for deserving drivers. There was one driver in particular Robin was particularly amused by, which was a fellow named Marco Greco, who wrote the Big Checo to AJ. So I avoided writing the Big Checo to Robin over the years. That's why we're still in business. But the thing I wanted to get across today is that Robin's life was a love letter to the sport and all of the people in this room. I want you to think about that. The passion on a day-to-day basis dealing with Robin. We started working together during an ill-fated project called Champ Car Magazine, which I believe was the best magazine we actually ever produced. And he was all in on that. And the thing I noticed is that he pushed everybody. I received a text from the afterlife that there was a fucking F1 story at the top of the homepage, which he hated. And now he is in the hero slot with his live stream at the top of the homepage on racer.com. To the very end, he wanted to know how we're doing on traffic, how we're doing on this. And it's fitting that today, of all days, we, for the first time in our history, looking back 12 months, passed 10 million unique users in a 12-month period. And I say that because Robin looked at stuff like that all the time. He cared. That's 4 million more than we had last year, which was 2 million more than we had the year before. So he believed you're all out there if you're a race fan. And if you're a race fan watching this on the live stream, although, Robin admired everybody in this room, he always reminded us who we all worked for. I'm going to take the Robin Miller finger. We work for you, all you people that watch these races on TV. You buy tickets, you buy magazines. All of us work for you, and Robin never let us forget it. He had balls the size of, watermelons when it came to that particular outlook. And, we don't have a lot of time. We have about the time it takes to run a qualifying sequence at Indianapolis. So I'm going to give you 4 good ones and come to a conclusion here. And I think when we all go out, leave this building today, Robin would want me to remind all of you that the people that really do matter most in the sport are the fans. They own us. We don't own them. They're not our fans. We're the thing they're passionate about and love. And if we get them energized and get them excited about what we do, we have a future. And there were 1 million shares of content off of our website in May. Why? Over half of those were IndyCar stories. That number of shares eclipsed the entire share total for the month before for everything combined. This sport is winning on a scale I haven't seen it win before. And that's because people care about it. That's the job of Robin Miller. His job was to make you care, make you feel something. And if you don't feel something when you think about Robin today, you're dead. And he would point out just like he is. So he had a really dark, funny sense of humor. My last conversation with him, he was, really not in good physical shape, but he was still trying to finish the mailbag. He wanted to finish the mailbag because he loved interacting with the fans. And his wish to me is we find a way to do something like that going forward. And I promise you we will, because the fans have to be heard. And credit to you, Mark, for understanding that and developing the friendship you developed with Robin. I know it meant a lot to him. And we all appreciate that too, because when we all go forward from this moment, there won't be another Robin Miller, but there will be someone. The person that will change the world is probably among us. They're probably young. I don't want to scare them away because we're all too serious and corporate. I want them to be that long-haired, scary kid that annoys Mario Andretti. Because I was one of those kids. And our future is down to the enthusiasm of the audience. And passion is infectious. So you all have the Robin Miller virus. Go spread it.
One of the many things about Robin was his ability to take a situation like, say, leadership changes in IndyCar racing, and there may have been a few over the decades or so, but he took those moments and turned them into personal friendships. Randy Menard is one of those examples. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Mr. Randy Menard.
Well, good afternoon. We've heard some amazing stories here today, and I mean, the things that I keep hearing over and over is about Robin's passion, his love, his loyalty, his connection to the fans. We knew Robin was a legend, that's for sure, and we're confirming that today. But I think it's part of my job today is also bring up, there's a lot of facts and myths that go along with a legend. So I thought I'd share a few of them that I know. First of all, Robin Miller was an art enthusiast. That's a fact. Robin loved art. He talked about art all the time. He picked art out all the time. I thought it would be real important today, maybe I bring a few of his masterpieces. I think the fun part is 80% of the people here today are wearing something. Number 2, Bobby Knight and Robin Miller were great friends. Myth. Dave said I could use the word hate. Robin and Bobby hated each other. Bobby would have his media team place Robin behind the tuba player in the band so Robin couldn't see a game. True story. Number 3, Robin Miller loved the Indiana State Fair. Robin would hold court every year by taking 20 or 30 of his best friends there, and the whole objective was who could eat the most fried food. Tony, am I wrong? I mean, you ate fried ice cream, fried cheeseburger, donut, just the craziest stuff in the world. The first year I went home, I threw up for an hour. I couldn't believe I did it. But it always ended the same way. Robin would have to go to the carnival, he'd have to win a big, huge stuffed animal, and then he had to go find a little boy or girl somewhere in the midway and give it away. Number 5, Robin was a very law-abiding, safe driver. The first time I rode with him was to a dirt track. I had never been so nervous in my life. He was driving 85, 90 miles an hour, and when he wasn't driving that fast, he was cussing someone out for driving 55 as he's trying to weave through the traffic. It was horrific. I always begged him to drive, but he would never let me. Number 6, Robin's fashion statement. As we can see over here on the mannequins, or I would just say it probably went along with his art. But what a lot of people might not know was he was colorblind. The last time he wore a true suit was in the late 1970s. He was riding on the Indiana Pacers, and they asked him, they said, "Hey, Robin, why don't you go shopping with us?" And he thought, "Yeah, that'd be great." So they took him shopping, and down there he found a great suit he had to have. Beautiful. It was a beautiful brown suit. So the team, they all chipped in and bought it for him. They said, "Robin, you need to wear this to the NBA game tonight." Robin, all proud of this new brown suit, gets it on, wears it to the game, and everybody, the team, everybody just thought it was hysterical. What Robin didn't realize, his brown suit was a velour light purple. He was so embarrassed he had to go change in his car at halftime. That is another true story. Number 8, Robin, he didn't drink alcohol. Nope, never did. He didn't need it. All he needed was Pepsi. Number 9, Robin didn't cuss. We're not going to go into that one. And number 10, Robin was proud to say that he flunked out of Ball State. But I want to change history on this a little bit. I think he got his PhD from Ball State in motorsports, and I think it stood for passion, hunger, and drive. I think Robin Miller has done so much for the sport. Robin had every opportunity in the world not to give me a chance. I wasn't a purist. I didn't know the sport. Hell, I was a cowboy, come from a whole different sport. And he took me in and wanted to help me and teach me. He wanted his motorsports to gain from it. And, you know, it was those dirt tracks. It was learning those fans from the dirt tracks. He wanted to introduce me to the best engineers, to the best mechanics. He wanted to teach me the history. He wanted me to learn about Dan Gurney's white pages. But most importantly, he wanted me to learn about what the fans wanted. That's the one thing he constantly went over and over. I used to tell my kids growing up, I say, you know what? Follow your dreams and your passion. Don't follow the money. Follow what you want to do in life. Robin Miller was the epitome of that. He did what he loved. Robin's legacy, in my opinion, will always be a straightforward approach to covering any sport that he did with no hidden agenda. He used his pen to tell stories. He used his pen to write about the history, the controversy, the scoops, to educate his fans, and yet make sure they were passionate about the sport, and fans loved him for it. But there's another part of that pen we all saw too. He could use that pen as a sword. He could gut someone so quick in the public eye, you didn't even know what hit you. And I think Mr. Penske talked about it, AJ, Mario, they all were on the end of that. His gruffness, his toughness, he was rough at times, but he had the biggest heart of gold. After my stint with IndyCar, I stayed in touch with him. We talked every week. And it was so much fun, the colorful stories. I mean, about sports, your personal lives, especially IndyCar. And I just can't say how much I'll miss him, and I know how much the motorsports will miss him. Thank you.
Well, we heard from a former champion, and certainly, as mentioned, there are a few here in the crowd, this wonderful crowd here this afternoon. But to me, Robin had this unique ability to be as relevant with the younger generation as he did with the older one as well. Now, he's not young anymore, but he's still a champion. Please welcome Indy 500 winner and Indianapolis IndyCar Series champion, Tony Kanaan. Tony, come on up.
You're an asshole, but anyway. First of all, I want to thank Diane for putting me on the spot. I'm wondering if Robin made that request for me to be last so I wouldn't leave after my speech, or just because he used to make fun of me that's where I start most of my later racist career. So for whatever it is, I'm here. I did not prepare a speech. Actually, I started to just put some notes together because I didn't think. First of all, I want to say, you know, like, we're doing this. We're all happy that we're here. We're celebrating his life. But I know exactly what he was going to say if he was here. He says, this is bullshit. You know, I don't know what are you guys doing here, wasting your time. So let's waste the time together. You're not here to cuss at us, so F you, and we're going to talk about it anyway. You know, there are so many things. We could be sitting here for hours, but I will use a couple examples that I've actually learned from Robin, and we're going to hear from a couple losers as well in the meantime that we had them record something. But, you know, we kept saying about his balls, and I think, you know, when I came to America 25 years ago, Robin was the guy, and people will tell me, be careful what you tell him because, you know, this is the guy. And I didn't speak very much of English, and I started hanging with Robin a lot, and up to this day, my wife tells me to watch my mouth because I can't talk like that at home with the kids. You know, like, what the hell are you doing? You know, she's like, you can't say that. Or I say, oh God, it's like, you can't say that. So, apologize to the young kids that are here. But, you know, I've learned with Robin, I mean, two people taught me in life what the Speedway meant. And that was my dad, that I lost when I was 13, that showed me this race and made him promise him in a hospital bed that I was going to win this thing one day. And Robin Miller, because I came here and he just, you know, taught me everything about it. I mean, from the past, although he kept saying that I'm 55 with my fake Brazilian passport, I am not. I'll be 47 in December with my American passport, so. But, you know, and I don't think, you know, everybody that came here, I don't think, I mean, he loved the Speedway more than all of us combined. And this is unbelievable. So I think it's more suiting than ever that we're going to keep honoring him. And I know that's what's going to happen. So I've learned with Robin how to eat the crappiest food. And I have to work out twice the next day. I made a mistake in one of the state fairs to actually put a whole grilled cheese, eat a whole grilled cheese in one bite, which made Robin's day. And he made me do that for 10 years in a row. In front of everybody. He used to tell me he has no idea why Lauren married me, and I don't disagree with him. I miss, you know, our shows between me, Dave first, and I, and Robin at RTV6, which half of the stuff we couldn't even talk about. The State Fair, actually back to the State Fair, you know, I think Randy mentioned, we used to go, my wife actually played really good basketball, and Robin got a really kick out of that when we first went early, you know, 12 years ago, and we kept getting stuffed animals that actually at one point the guy says she's not allowed to play here anymore. But the creepiest part was we used to get this huge stuffed animals, which we still have 2 huge elephants in the house that it's disgusting, but they're there. But what freaked me out the most was when he used to approach a little kid and try to give that to the kid, and the parents looking like, what the hell is this guy? I mean, what does he want? I said, Robin, you're going to get sued one of these days. And then he would drag me, says, oh, this is Tony Kanaan. So like I was his alibi. Like, you know, I'm not going to molest your kid or anything like that. I just want to give him a stuffed animal. So embarrassing. You know, he bragged about his mailbag, but I was tired of answering the technical questions, getting an email. Hey, kid, can you help me with that? So thanks, Paul. I want half of his check if you want to do that. The Mexican dinners, I mean, but, you know, I could go on and on and on. I mean, 3 things that I think I needed to say here was obviously when I lost my job in 2010, that guy, he's my manager. He was my manager and never actually charged me a penny. I mean, he would write a story about me. He would come up, what are you doing today? I said, Robin, stop. It's kind of obvious that you kind of like tried to get me a job, and that's not cool. I mean, but he was, and that was him. He was a friend. I mean, we hung in the house. We talked. We talked every day. We cussed a lot. I remember 2 episodes. One, you know, I've been through, you know, in IndyCar for 23 years. So first, you know, management change in IndyCar said, Robin, who is this cowboy that is coming over here with this cowboy boots? And I cannot understand him. After I met AJ, I can clearly understand Randy extremely well. And he will go through, and he made us meet. And then, you know, I think in early days is you got to talk to him. He's awesome, and this and that. And then years later, I said, Robin, who's this tennis player that is coming here to like run this show? Which was Mark, that came in from, and you know, we met. So Robin was that kind of guy, trying to connect everybody, try to make the sport better, and that was him. So I will not finish my remarks until let's listen, Jim. Let's listen to the 2 losers that we asked to talk about Robin for a little bit.
All right, thanks, TK. Speaking of TK, it's nice that you're wearing Tony's. What is that, retirement #1 shirt?
This is the first one of his, I think we're calling it the green, white checker. Is this maybe another couple retirements going on?
I don't know, how many retirements?
I think this is in TK's size too, because it's pretty short on the old arms.
Yeah, I think somebody shrunk that one. Maybe I watched
Actually, it might be yours, you know, trying to get to the wallet.
Very good. Anyway, TK, how many retirements are you actually going to do? But okay, let's focus on our pal Robin. My biggest memory of Robin, well, I think first of all he was definitely he kept us all honest. You know, whether you were his friend or what, if you did something he didn't agree with, he called you out on it, normally in print. But I loved the dinners we got to go to. Him, Shunk, TV's Dave First, and whoever else showed up. And I mean, that could be AJ Foyt, could be Mario Andretti, Dan Gurney, Pernelli Jones, Uncle Bobby, or Johnny Rutherford, but Johnny never, ever picked up the bill for dinner. Ever. Kind of like you, Dix.
Come on.
So I loved that Robin would show up with those photographs. He just showed up random photos and he'd put them out, and it got the conversation going, and the conversations you had with these type of people instigated by Robin were incredible. And as someone that loves the sport, for me it was like being at Disneyland. And I'll always be grateful to Robin for that, as well as his contributions to my Jim Clark crew. There was all these random things that he would come up with and give me that you could never ever replace.
For me too, though, you know, those dinners were one, you know, to whether it was going for lunch at IHOP, one of his favourite places, right down the road from my house.
He loved quality food.
He did love quality food, but he was the gateway for me, you know, learning about the history of the Speedway. Obviously, you know, I was a big fan and had heroes, you know, like AJ and Mario and you know, Mears and you know, the Mount Rushmore right here, you know, but it was fun to just hear the real truth and stories, you know, of what actually went on, you know, whether it was the little bit of cheating or you know, the parties or whatever it was.
Or when this guy disagreed with this guy, what actually happened on this day, that got pretty interesting.
The dirt was the best part. And then obviously to also, you know, pick up the gifts of lingerie that he would buy for my wife, which was always interesting. I'm sure, Shunk, you had a part in that as well. But, you know, for me, it was just his passion for the sport was incredible. And in, you know, even, you know, Nashville weekend, you know, he's calling relentlessly after the race to try and, you know, how was the race? How was the fans? You know, he just, you know, he loved the sport so much and tried to better it or help it in any way that he could. But the brutal honesty that he had was also very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and him shared that passion for Thousand Island Dressing.
It fixes every I can say bad food or bad meal. Thousand Island, that's a trick.
So you go, you've learned something today. Well, anyway, Robin, we're going to miss you. You were such a great part of our lives in IndyCar racing. Just won't be the same. Over to you guys.
Miss you, man. And lots of love to the family.
Losers. Anyway, I just want to finish my remarks actually trying to not to get too serious, but actually, you know, the funny part, I was talking to Lauren on the way here, and to come up here and talk about Robin and what we've learned from Robin, everybody would expect that if you would ask me, what have I learned in life, you know, or in racing from Robin? And actually, it's funny because it's nothing about racing. It's actually about life. I think he's the guy that actually wouldn't care what he wore, wouldn't care what car he drove, he wouldn't care what watch he had. He didn't want things, and he just lived to be Robin, an asshole at times, a nice guy at times with the biggest heart. But, you know, and I'm going to use that example for probably the rest of my life. I mean, sometimes we get carried on about having things, conquering things, and he just wanted to be here. So, from one asshole to the other, I'll see you in hell.
Hello. I'm Diane Miller-Zachary. I had the privilege of being Robin Miller's little sister. I have a long list of thank yous. I think I'm going to get my thank yous out of the way because I don't want to cry. And I have a lot of people to be very grateful to for helping put on this wonderful celebration of life today. First of all, I'm sorry about the weather. And whoever mentioned it, this is on Robin. The day he passed, Indianapolis got 4 inches of rain, more lightning, more thunder, more, you know, lightning strikes. I think it hit a car dealership, and I don't know how many went up in flame. So this was typical. I thought, okay, Robin, couldn't it wait till 2 and we could get out of here? But I guess not. But I'd like to thank Roger Penske. Robin considered Roger a very, very, very dear friend. And they had a lot of great conversations and a lot of great times together. And I thank Roger and everyone from IMS to give us this lovely facility today to have this wonderful celebration of life. I'd also like to thank Randy Bernard, who you heard from earlier, who, with his generosity, put on this amazing, amazing stage, drive-in theater screen, beautiful backlighting, wonderful film and audio. And he's had also a lot of help with this production has been Steve Shunk, who I do believe deserves an Academy Award, probably an Emmy and a Tony. And also Jim Roeder, who's been by his side helping him all week as well. I had a lovely escort to the stage today, Dave First. Robin and Dave were very good friends, and he's the only person that came to mind that could host this event and bring it all together. Paul Pfanner, with Racer Magazine, not only do I love him dearly for hiring my brother, but I'd like to thank him for helping us with the swag bags today with the nice racer emblem on with Robin. And while I'm talking about Paul and the bag, late in Robin's life, when he was in the hospital, Steve Shunk and Tim Coffeen and myself were helping Robin with the mailbag. I helped just a teeny bit, but Shunk typed until like 2:30 in the morning once in his in his hospital room, and Fino was trying to help him with the car questions, the engine questions, things like that, in case Tony wasn't near the phone. So, Steve was helping Robin answer questions. They even asked my opinion a couple times, which was kind of funny. But it was a wonderful, wonderful moment for Tim and Steve and I to have the privilege to just help a little bit with the mailbag. Okay, I got that page. There we go. I have to say thank you to the state of Indiana and the governor for the Sagamore of the Wabash. That's quite an incredible achievement, and I think that's fantastic. And I'd like to thank anybody who contributed a video, a snapshot, a kind word, a cuss word, whatever it took to put it together. Thank you very much. I hope you were able to read his obituary that is inside the Racer magazine, inside the swag bag. T.E. McHale, I asked him to write his obituary, but nothing like you would see in a newspaper. And I hope you all take a moment to read it. It's got a nice bookmark that says, Ball State Cardinal proud. The night before we lost Robin, the president of Ball State University wrote a letter to him. Unfortunately, Robin never got to read it, but it made reference to the Racer article when Robin talked and thanked all the Racer Nation for being there all those years for him. So I hope you read that as well. If you got your swag bag, I hope you're enjoying them. Linda Rosenberg, she had some really cool towels made. I know the Steelers have theirs, but now we have Robin Miller, so we can swing our little spirit towels. Tony's got one out. Can you show it for us? There you go. Yeah, show your spirit. Maybe it'll be in your golf bag. Maybe you'll clean poop off your shoe. I don't know. Maybe it'll be by your bar to remind you not to drink too much, because Robin never had a drink. And while I'm mentioning that, Robin's here with us today. If you'll look over on the little table by the beautiful, beautiful Jim Herby's Novi, you'll see Parnelli Jones number 40 turbine. Well, that is an actual vintage liquor decanter, which is kind of ironic, but that's what I chose to put Robin in, because I looked and looked for something to put Robin in, and there was nothing appropriate. I just couldn't find anything. And so I found that online, and it was really beat up, and I called Shunk, and I said, Shunkster, what about this to put Robin in? I said, it's racing, it's the 500, it's the turbine. I mean, come on. And he goes, I've got one in my living room. It's perfect. I'll give it to you. So I took the empty container over to Conkle in Speedway, where everybody goes, and they had never received anything like that. And they said, you want us to what? And I said, I'd like you, I don't think he'll all fit in there, but what you can, I'd like him in this. So, and if it had been an oval track set up today, we were thinking about asking Mario to take him in the two-seater on one final lap. So, but we couldn't get that worked out. But we had a great time, and when it was time for me to pick him up, they sent me a text and they said, Diane Robbins ready to be picked up. We topped him off, and he's ready for his final lap. And I thought that was really, really sweet. I also want to thank Jamie Harding Furlow. She also had helped us get the bags and the lanyards, your very official credentials. The Speedway wanted to make sure we had some kind of signage to know that we were actually supposed to be on the grounds today. And I had more fun making these, so I hope you enjoy these. They won't get you anywhere except in this room, but at least you're here, and that's fun. So I think the last thing I have to say as far as thank yous is I want to thank my family. I came in May to see Robin and to come to the 500, and I never went home. And so they had what I think a 4-month vacation from me, but they were nice enough to loan me out to Robin, and he really appreciated that. And I wouldn't have spent any. It was the most humbling and most rewarding time to spend with Robin those last 4 months. And we laid in the same bed one night and took a nap. I watched a lot of golf. I learned a lot more about golf. We watched a lot of football. We watched every race. Didn't matter who was racing, what was racing, we watched. And you know, he gave me a lot of insight on, over the years, we really reflected on his career, on all the drivers, and all the mechanics. Everybody actually touched his life. And if you're in this room and you knew Robin, you touched his life, and he loved you all dearly. So I can't thank you enough for being here, and my family and all my friends. And I have to say a special shout out to my personal friends that have been my rock for the last 4 months. My best friend and her husband. If Robin was in the hospital, they lived a half a mile, so I stayed there. If Robin was out of the hospital, I lived with Robin at his condo. And nobody ever spent the night at Robin's condo. You know, well, okay, we won't go there. Okay. Yeah. Invite, like, a family member like myself. Let's put it that way.
We're good.
So anyway, but they did everything for me. I mean, you know, they'd help me get Robin to the hospital. They'd help me get Robin out of the hospital. They would run a million errands. They drove like a bat out of hell and got us to the hospital. They helped us one night when he collapsed. I mean, one of my dear friends and a neighbor helped me carry him to the car. And my neighbors are here too, and I love them all, or his neighbors are here and I love them as well. It just takes a village, and you're all a part of this village. And Robin's personal friends, they were my rock as well. Steve and Larry and Joe, and just on and on and on. It's just wonderful to have you all, because I couldn't have done it without all of you. So thank you so very much. I think, and also the doctors and the nurses, they're just not doctors and nurses. They're angels, and they're angels among us, and they became family. Whether Robin spent a lot of time in the BMT clinic, and sometimes he was there 3 times a week getting blood and platelets and infusions. And we bought a lot of donuts from Long's and a lot of Freddy cheeseburgers and milkshakes. And, you know, Robin always wanted to take care of everybody. And so they were there to take care of him. But he was buying donuts and lunches and dinners all the time. And I'll actually miss going there, because they truly were family to us. So just a couple more things. This is my eldest daughter, Emily Rose, and we always called her Emily Rose, and Robin always called her Emily Rose. And this is our youngest, Ashley Suzanne, but we just called her Ashley, or the Tasmanian Devil. So I used to say if she'd been first, she would have been last and only. But Emily came first. So Emily was more like the textbook Dr. Spock. You know, she was the first grandchild, And she was our first child, and so she was just doted over so much. And my mother would teach her poetry, and my mother would say, Emily, recite Little Orphan Annie. And Emily would say, which stanza? And then Ashley was born, and her hands on her hip like, I'm not talking about Little Orphan Annie. I mean, you know, we had great times with Uncle Robin. He used to bring them out in the track, put them in the golf cart, drive all around the grounds. One time he let Emily drive. How old were you?
Oh,
Get your microphone.
Way too young to be driving. I don't know how old I was. I should have never been behind the wheel.
And what did you run into?
Oh.
I remember if you don't.
No, tell it.
Okay, in the old days, the old garage is very near and dear to my heart, and where the old media room was. He said, honey, just roll it right up here and stop. She did, right into the wall, and we came to a stop. So,
I hit somebody with a golf cart too.
Get your microphone. I think you did too.
I also hit someone with
You
a
hit
golf
a
cart.
car.
I
but
ran
not
into
a race car.
a parked car.
A parked car.
Sorry.
And I think his words were, oh, I don't want to say it because my grandkids are down, but you know, what the hell were you looking at? I'm like, I don't know, they're 9 and 10. What do you want them to look at? I don't know. So anyway, I also wanted to say something with both my daughters here. When Robin and I, he hooked us up with Tom Sneva. My husband, Tom, was the big driver education guru in the state of Indiana and passed a lot of legislation and things like that. A lot of former drivers out here, you know, he helped, unlike Robin. And he said, hey, I know somebody who would invest in your business and he'd like it a lot. And we were like, well, who? And he goes, well, Tom Sneva. And of course, we were shocked. And so we got hooked up with Tom Sneva and became good friends, but we had Tom Sneva School of Safe Driving. And it was a wonderful, wonderful relationship. Well, we went out with Robin to Vegas. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Robin in Vegas. So, okay, enough said. And then we went to Vegas for, I think, 26 hours, stayed up all night long, all day, and then we drove to Phoenix to see Tom Sneva drive. Well, before we left town, Ashley was 6 months old, Emily was 7, and we didn't have a will, so we made a will. And, you know, my parents were getting older and not in the best health, so we put a limit on what age they could care for my daughters, our daughters, and then we made Uncle Robin the next of kin. If anything happened to my parents, or by a certain age if they were still living, he was in charge.
That would have been fun.
Yeah.
That would have been a totally different experience.
Can you imagine? They would have had the coolest childhood. Can you imagine? Come on, kids. We're going to go eat French fries and cheeseburgers, and I'll teach you how to gamble. You know, we'll play craps outside. I don't know what he would have said, but it would have been fun. I do know they would have been well taken care of. They would have still been able to continue their dance education and maybe stay in school. So we would have probably written that somewhere. But I don't know. I wanted both of them to say a little something. What was one of your fondest memories?
Well, hi. I want to say that a lot of people have talked about the state fair and those giant stuffed animals that you guys all won playing those basketball games, probably thousands of dollars that he spent playing those games. I'm a proud owner of one of those giant stuffed animals. Lauren knows what I'm talking about. It was like a 5 Goes West, like 5-foot tall mouse that we had down in our basement. I really loved that thing, so that was great. Another thing, Uncle Robin. This is just funny. You'll get a kick out of this. I think when I was about 6 years old, my uncle looked at my mom and said, she's either going to be in jail or a stripper by the time she's 16. And I'm proud to say that I achieved neither of those things yet. My daughter Harlow, we'll see how she does. She's 2, so she's got a ways to go. But.
I think, well, as we all know, Uncle Robin was always at many, many events. But we made sure we gave him a little extra culture coming to dance events. He probably sat through 11 or 12 years of the Nutcracker. not his first choice to come to a ballet, but he was there every year, dead center, about 5 rows back. But it was the first year I was in the show. He leaned over to my mom about 10 minutes into the production and he said, "They're not talking." Or singing. When are they gonna start? And she said, "Robin, it's a ballet. They don't speak, they don't sing." And he was like, "Oh." Kind of sat back like, we're only 10 minutes in, that's a 2-hour production. Then it got a little closer.
He said they were he goes, "I'm clocking them."
I'm clocking
Exact
them.
words.
Like he's clocking
I'm clocking
qualifications,
them.
yeah.
10 minutes.
Then it gets closer and he said, "When's halftime?" Well, at the theater, it's called intermission. So, we had great stories like that. I mean, and it just went on and on and on. And we got him in formal attire at my wedding, which was amazing, yeah. He was dressed very nice, very chic, very GQ. But all of my professors, all of my dance teachers, everybody that saw him at the Nutcracker, he was in his Robin Miller attire. At Clues Hall, at the Mira. He saw many performances of Ashley and I doing the Radio City Christmas Spectacular. He would spend our holidays in whatever city we were on the road performing in, and luckily he didn't mind traveling and was used to it. But it was fun. We always kept him going. He was there to cheer us on, and I will tell you, we had the best Christmases. Nobody else could even imagine what our Christmas days were. I wish everybody could experience it. It was like no other. The stories that were told, it was just one for the books. Year after year, I've battled with my own family on what they needed to wear attire-wise, and they said, "Well, Uncle Robin's gonna be there. Can't I just wear this?" And I was like, he gets a pass. You don't. You have to dress this way. And he's like, "I don't have to be in a collared shirt. He's going to be in a Colts hoodie or a racer, blah, 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 whatever." And so, it was always funny moments. It was always great times. And it made everything that much more fun.
Speaking of Christmas, sometimes 45 minutes before the family would gather, Robin would call and say, "Hey, Diane, do you mind if I bring somebody to Christmas?" And I'm like, "No, of course. Who is it?" "Oh, it's this sweet gal. She's stranded in Indianapolis tonight. She's supposed to be on the East Coast, but her plane's not flying out for another day. Is there any way I could bring her?" And I said, "Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about her?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, she's one of my favorite blackjack dealers out in Atlantic City. And we always try to get together when she's in town, and she has nowhere to go today." And I said, "Okay, great." So, we'd scramble to find a gift, make a place at the table, things like that. He never wanted anybody not to have a great Christmas, to be left alone. He had the biggest heart of anybody I ever knew. He did anything and everything. These girls never went without anything. If I ever needed a little help, he was always there. "Pay me back when you can, kid. No worries." He was just the nicest guy. He was a character, and as you say, he was a little bit of an ass, or a lot of an ass, either way you look at it. But he was one of a kind, and I don't think we would have wanted him to be any different than the way he truly was. I was trying to think of one other thing funny about Robin, but there's so many. I know one thing. In the month of May, I'd come out, and I was fortunate enough to have credentials, which I was a huge race fan. When we were little, my mom and dad were depression kids. They didn't go to college, but they worked very, very hard, and we had a wonderful, lovely Leave It to Beaver-like life. And Robin was a little bit more like Eddie Haskell than Beaver. And when we couldn't afford tickets, we would stand on the far side, on the back stretch beyond the links, the golf course, and stand at the fence and watch maybe the first 25 laps because we couldn't afford tickets, and then we'd go home and listen to it on the radio. And my first recollection of coming to the Speedway, my mother and I had matching checkered dresses. We sat in Tower Terrace. It was a Sunday afternoon. I had a snow cone, and Robin was hands on the wire fence watching every moment. He wouldn't stay in his seat. But our love of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway started very early in life, and this is home to him, and I'm so glad we could be here today to do this. But one more thing I wanted to say, in May, when I was out here, and I'd get people would say, "Are you Robin Miller's sister?" And they'd say it kind of like, not mean, but almost mean. And I'd say, "Why?" I never said yes or no during the month of May at the track. They'd say, "Are you Robin Miller's sister?" No, I would say, "Why?" And if it was friendly, then I'd admit it. If they'd say something nasty and hateful, I said, "Yeah, he's kind of a jerk." You know, I just went with the flow because you never knew. I mean, I didn't want to, have a beer spilled on my head. I didn't know what was coming, so. But it was really great to be Robin's little sister. We were really good friends growing up. He was a great big brother. Through the elementary, middle school years, I was annoying. High school was better. In college, he wanted to meet all my friends. So, but I just can't thank you enough for being here. I have to tell you that Steve Shunk has been adopted as my new big brother, whether he wants to be or not. We spend like a lot of time together, and putting this together, it's been very, very special. So just thank you so much for coming, and I hope you had a wonderful time. I can't thank you enough. I think it's time for Shunkster to come up and say a few words.
Yeah, as mentioned, thank you, Diane, and Ashley and Emily. It's been a tremendous afternoon, obviously. Thank you so much for your attendance and your patience and being with us, because we couldn't do this without all of his friends and family members. Our special thanks to everybody at the IMS Museum for one of the best set pieces I think you could ever come across for a situation like this. So thank you very much. And just so everybody knows, we've left an open seat in the media center for the last 3 NTT IndyCar Series races. I think we'll probably have something moving forward for Robin as well. All right, so before we wrap it up, one final speaker. Please welcome the aforementioned many times Steve Shunk. Go ahead.
First of all, big round of applause, Dave first. Wonderful job by Davey. I am going to keep this so short and sweet because Robin will be going, "God damn it, we got to get to Working Man's Friend. They're going to be closed. We got to get there for lunch." So, first of all, again, thanks to Dave, thanks to Jim Roeder. Museum staff did a great job on this. Robin hasn't been ornery, said anything wrong. He's in his little turban. He's all good. Couple things I was going to talk about, but I'm going to make this less than 30 seconds. And his doctors and nurses. I grew to love them, too. You guys did a wonderful job. We're going to talk about It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World as his favorite movie. Not time for that. We're going to talk about Saturday Night Live, about Massive Head Wound Harry and Ed Grimley. Not time for those stories. We're going to talk about how this man could find downtown parking in Indianapolis when every parking spot would fill. Well, Shunkster, I'm right around the corner. I'm not paying anything. They're trying to screw you out of money in this place. I like to thank the Canadians for coming. I appreciate them coming across the border. Thank you very much. Robin loved happy, smiling faces. We'll talk about all that later on, too. I'm going to go off with this. There's the Dr. Seuss saying, and I used it about my friend Bobby Unser, and I think it applies to the beloved Jenks, who we also lost. Don't cry because it's over, but smile because it happened. If this clip right here doesn't make you smile and remember Robin Miller, as we all want to remember him, nothing will. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Drive safe, spay or neuter your pets. Here you go.
Okay, so let's bring in Robin Miller now from Cleveland and Paul Tracy. This is a guy that Sebastian Bourdais actually called washed up.
Well, I think when you're close to 40, you haven't won a race in a couple years, Nicole. If anybody needed a victory, get the fuck off the racetrack, you stupid son of a bitch. I think we have to start again. Sorry about that, Greggy.
That was absolutely classic. We're only on the bird. It's okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, everyone. as people are on the way out, like we always said, in lieu of flowers, there's a QR code or something on the back table. You don't have to do it today, but if you'd like, you can QR code, pick a charity to give some money to, and keep Robin's spirit alive with everybody. Thank you again. Thanks.